POWERTRAX presents the most powerful sport on earth, the Redman TNT All-American Pulling Series.
Turning the power on, rolling on down, turning the power on.
POWERTRAX is brought to you by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevy truck.
See the lightning, hear the thunder roll.
Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Leake, along with Army Armstrong, and we are in San Jose, California at Spartan Stadium as Redman and TNT has teamed up with Z6 Motorsports to bring you not one, but two levels of competition today. And one of those is the modified 4x4s, the other the super modified two-wheel drive competition. And, Army, there's a big difference between the two.
The main difference is the amount of wheels they're going to be put into the ground to make the horsepower. Self-explanatory. The four-wheel drive class are limited on cubic inches, but they've got to put all their horsepower to the ground, four wheels. Two-wheel drives, they can go up on the horsepower with supercharged engines, but they can only put that power to the ground with two wheels.
And competition level, it's going to be super because the current national points leader, which is Wayne Roush, is the only regular Redman TNT Series circuit driver to be on the West Coast, and he's going to face some stiff competition.
Wayne came out a few weeks earlier, Richard, in order to get a handle on this track surface. It'll be the last shot for him. He thinks he's got it figured out.
So we'll be back in San Jose, California in just a moment to get all the competition underway.
You've seen those Chevy versus Ford tests, right? We came up with one of our own. Half-ton 4x4s, best available tires, driven at the same identical speed right through this 18-inch deep ditch. Now, this is a real control test, so don't you try it because you'll damage your truck. That's the Chevy with torsion bar suspension, and that's the Ford with twin traction beam suspension. And you can see why we've had to change a hardened pickup.
That's today's Chevy truck.
Over 28 million adults get athlete's foot.
I'm Jim Bird. I had athlete's foot until I used NP27. It has an ingredient recommended by doctors.
Look, NP27 stops the burning, itching of athlete's foot fast.
NP27. Nothing's a better cure for athlete's foot.
What's it like pitching in the series?
Like climbing a mountain, like going to battle. No matter how many games you win, how many awards you get, you never do it alone. It takes teamwork. All the guys giving their best. That's what makes the Sporting News a winner, too. Teamwork. 40 top baseball writers covering every team in every city every week.
The pros know the Sporting News delivers great news updates, full team-by-team reports, and thousands of stats.
More stats and inside stuff than any other sports weekly. So get the Sporting News for the best baseball coverage. Plus weekly coverage of football, basketball, and hockey. Find out for yourself why over 725,000 sports fans get the Sporting News Weekly and get smart for themselves.
Call 1-800-638-1200. Get 50 issues of the Sporting News for 4 payments of just $7.47. You'll save 75% off the cover price, 50% off the regular subscription rate. Call now 1-800-638-1200.
It's the hottest half hour of track talk. Join Bob Jenkins and Larry Newber for all the latest news and highlights on ESPN Speed Week. Friday nights at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN.
Welcome back to Spartan Stadium in San Jose, California. I'm Richard Leake. I'm going to be topside. Army Armstrong is going to be trackside. And this is the modified four-wheel drive competition, Army.
First truck coming out, the Red Rabbit, one of the strong pullers out of California. Richard chooses the right side of the track. The first position, very important today. It may pay dividends as the sun comes out later on in the program.
That is Dan COELHO out of Turlock, California, and Red Rabbit. Dan on the circuit for 10 years. He knows what he's doing, and it looks like he's got a good pull going, Army.
Awfully strong shot flag comes down. We'll have the distance in a second.
281 feet, 6 inches, a good distance to start this competition here in San Jose.
Dan started to the extreme right side of the track.
And you see typical California people enjoying a typical California sunny afternoon as they're enjoying now. Dan Moore out of Dos Palos, California. Dan drives Natural High.
Natural High, early model sheet metal of a GMC truck, late model horsepower, Chevrolet all the way, good run. He also trying to work the right side of the track.
Well, Dan has been in the sport 5 years. He's a carpenter by trade, and I'm sure he's used a little bit of that knowledge to go into the mechanics of this as he pulls 265 and 7 inches. Not good enough to take over first place, but not a bad pull.
Moore stays strong in that number 2 spot.
That brings to the line Bob Furman out of Napa, California. He drives a vehicle called Show No Mercy.
For all the Ford fans, this one's it. He's working his way over to the left side of the track. Third puller. Everybody's going about 6 inches left of the man in front of him. Engine breaking up a little bit, Richard.
Well, Bob is a steam fitter, which means that he's got the muscles to muscle down the track in these monster of machines. Bob Furman with a pull of 233 feet, 8 inches. Not a very good pull because it's pretty dusty on the track, and that is not good for these drivers. And Army earlier today spent some time on the track to see what the conditions would be and to see how this dust and heat would affect it. As you know, a puller likes to have a moist track. Let's find out from Army why the conditions here at Spartan Stadium aren't the best for the pullers.
Warm California sun, along with a strong northern breeze, may determine the wind this afternoon in San Jose, California. Right now, the moisture is not coming back up from the bottom of the track. The track crew is working feverishly to keep it packed well, but the moisture is just not there due to the sun and the wind.
All right, Army, that's going to be a situation we're going to have to keep our eye on, as the competitors will today. Bob BOROWIECK comes to the line now. Bob is out of Cameron Park, California. He drives one called HANGTOWN Hustler.
Got to be one of the toughest names we've seen on a pulling truck. California looking strong. He comes down the middle of the track, Richard. Nobody's going in the tracks of the man in front of him.
Well, you can see the dust flying out from beneath the wheels of HANGTOWN Hustler. Not a great pull. 232 and 4 inches for Bob BOROWIECK. Bringing to the line now Dave Ribeiro. Dave out of Tulare, California, with mare to spare. You see him backing up, getting ready to get hooked up to the sled, and that's an important part of the competition, isn't it?
Yeah, they actually spot the sled as they go back. As a matter of fact, the driver later in the field right here is explaining exactly where he wants the sled. This truck is taking a crapshoot down that left side of the track, Richard. He's already going all the way to the left, getting out of the grooves of the trucks in front of him.
All right, Dave Ribeiro, he is a dairy farmer, 26 years old, and he's been a puller for 8 years, so he's got the experience.
Good ground speed, looking strong, but the track conditions just not holding the horsepower. Chassis starts to unload on him right here, Richard.
Yeah, I see the bouncing. What causes that exactly?
No bite. Just cannot get the horsepower to the track.
Well, it's reflected in his pulling distance of 269 feet and 6 inches, the pull distance for Dave Ribeiro. That means Dan COELHO remains the favorite and the leader at this point in time. We're going to go down trackside now to find out how these track conditions are affecting the drivers. You see Dave holding up his mascot, which is a tradition here at Spartan Stadium. Let's go down to Army.
Dave Ribeiro works the left side of the track. On the end, Dave, at about the 200-foot mark, it looked tough. You were bouncing awfully strong. What was the problem out there?
I ran the tires a little bit lower on pressure, and the sled caught up with me and really made them work.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dave, it looks like you pulled up at least to the top, the number 2 spot, maybe be able to stay in that top 3 the rest of the afternoon. The question we're having, the condition of the track, it looks like it's drying out. You think the track's going to be coming around or going away later on in the field?
Depends how deep the moisture is. It looks like they put a lot of water in it last night and this morning, so it's got a good chance of coming up.
We're going back upstairs.
And Mark Cirilli out of Hollister, California, is on the track now in Garfield.
Engine goes upstairs, Richard. A lot of wheel speed. It may come back to haunt him as the blue starts to roll.
What is the smoke coming out from the engine there?
He's a lot of freewheeling going on, Richard.
All right, and you also see the dust coming up from the track. Army talked about the conditions of the track, not the best, reflected in Mark's pull of only 220 feet plus inches. So that's not going to get him anywhere close to our current leader, Dan COELHO, as we return to Spartan Stadium in San Jose, California in just a moment for more modified 4x4 action.
Open.
Welcome back to Spartan Stadium, San Jose, California, where already we have enjoyed some great pulls in this modified 4x4 competition. Dan COELHO is our leader, and you know a lot goes into the construction of these modified 4x4s, as Army Armstrong explains.
For the pulling, the 6,200-pound modified 4x4, one of the most competitive classes we have in the sport. Kind of an interesting class. It's all important as to where you plant the weight. The ideal situation is to get as much weight on each tire as possible, weighing in at the maximum 6,200 pounds. You notice the mechanic's nightmare here. The frame, or the chassis, is constructed out of aircraft aluminum. You look at the holes throughout the aluminum. The driver said he had a tremendous amount of problems actually burning up drill bits, hardened drill bits, in order to get through the aluminum. The back of the truck, from the cab back, there's very little weight added. on the very back of the truck, what holds the weight of the rear tires planted to the track is the actual pulling sled. So you have 50,000 pounds of weight through a chain that's holding the back of the truck down. Now the problem is, how do we get weight to the front? We go forward, we notice our driver's compartment. You have a fuel tank sitting right behind the driver's compartment, your hydraulic that lifts the body. The driver, of course, sits in the middle of the frame, in the middle of the chassis. And then the engine, with all the safety equipment hooked to it, that engine is moved as far forward as the rules will allow. Now, the idea of the game is to get as much weight on the front wheels, the center line of the front wheels, forward. At that point, we come out to this bar right here. On this bar, during a pulling event, they will hang as much weight as the average automobile will have that drives up and down the everyday street. You got to weigh 6,200 pounds. Where do you put the weight? How do you put it on there? That's the trick. The ideal situation is to plant all four wheels with the same amount of weight. Mechanic's nightmare, he does it through an aluminum frame and hanging as much of his weight as possible all the way out to the 40-inch rule.
Well, of course, another ideal situation would be a little bit wetter track. We do not have that, but we do have the final three competitors as they chase after Dan Coelho. This is Gene Casatordo out of Morgan Hill, California, driving hard 8. What's the smoke coming out of that left side?
Richard, on the left side of the engine, he's got a cylinder that's not firing at all. It's going away on him. Basically, what we're looking at is a 7-cylinder run. The Ford not able to get all 8 of them working for him.
Well, Gene Casatordo at a disadvantage right off at the bat. And you can see it's reflected in his pulling distance of 256 feet and 11 inches. And there you see, I guess that shows that the cylinder is not firing for him.
Completely gone away, Richard.
All right, and that brings us down to only 2 competitors now. We have yet to see a full pull this evening in the modified 4x4 action. David Ravella out of Hollister, California, hopes to change that. That is a sharp-looking machine.
Gotta be a California truck. Look at the beautiful flame paint job on early model Chevrolet, about a 55 Chevy body, late model engine, making a horsepower, a decent run down the middle of the track. I don't believe the track's going to stay for him, though, Richard.
The track may not stay there, but the fans are with him. They love the sharpness of this truck, and appropriately, it's named the Prosecutor. David going, what the heck? I gave it my best shot here at San Jose, California in these modified 4x4s, but not a great pull for David Ravella. That sets it up. Only one gentleman to go for the win, and that is Bill Arzi out of Hollister, and risky business that Tom Cruise, not the driver, Bill Arzi is.
70 Chevrolet looks good. The engine's up. They're making the horsepower. They're just not able to get the horsepower to stick to the track. Chassis starts to bounce a little bit. Not going to be his day.
Well, the dust's flying, and you said earlier in this program that the track conditions would be a major factor, and the guy first out of the gate tonight, Dan Coelho, would have the advantage, and he certainly did, because Dan Coelho is our winner. As you see the top 5, 5th place, David Ravella, then Gene Casatordo. Dan Moore took 3rd. 2nd place tonight went to David Ribeiro with a pull of 269.6. And your winner this afternoon, Dan Coelho, with a pull of 281 feet, 6 inches. Let's go down to Army Armstrong with the winner.
You and the Dodge boys making a whole lot of horsepower out here, Dan.
Well, we're trying. I'm one of the few left in the country that's running the Chrysler in the modified class. There's a lot of them running in the 2-wheel drive, but the modifieds aren't. There's not too many of them Chryslers running. I don't know why.
Well, I'll tell you, on the West Coast now, we're glad to have you with us on the Red Man Tour, but on the West Coast Tour, you've won a lot of championships out here in the past. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, my Wild Hair truck was California State Champion in 1983, 85, and 87. So, done that consistently in between, too. It was right in there close.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dan, it's an honor working with you. You fellas doing a fine job out here. Part of the Red Man Tour. We're glad to be in the West Coast. The Dodge boys dominating so far as we go back upstairs to Richard.
So that is your winner, Dan Coelho, in the modified 4x4 division here at Spartan Stadium, San Jose, California. Now we move into the super modified 2-wheel drive truck, and we've got 10 great competitors in this division. Basically, what is the difference in the super modifieds and the modified 4x4s, Army?
The supercharged engines appear in these 2-wheel drive vehicles. Each of these